with some of the younger brothers and sisters their experience of what Umrah was to them, to encourage, inshallah, everybody to consider taking their family and doing this. It's a very meaningful journey for sure. Obviously, Hajj is much more profound and much more powerful, but Umrah can definitely be a life-changing experience as well for those who do it with the right mindset, inshallah. So to the brothers and sisters, I've been preparing this for a while, and I postponed it until now because I thought the timing would be nice right before Hajj. So I'll kind of go on a little bit until you guys are ready, if that's all right, just as a reminder. So until they're ready, I will summarize for you what we have, where we are in the Seerah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. And it's not, I want to say it's a coincidence, but it's a taysir from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that within his Seerah alayhi salatu wasalam, we're also within his final Hajj. And this is towards the end of his life, obviously, alayhi salatu wasalam. Usually whenever you come to the farewell Hajj and the farewell sermon, you're talking a few halaqats and then the Seerah will be over. The way I think we're going to do this is we're going to probably finish this the Seerah halaqah, like we'll finish his life story, alayhi salatu wasalam, sometime within July, because I will be on and off a little bit throughout the summer. And then we will have different events running on Saturday. Like we'll have family night Saturday nights throughout the summer, on and off with the halaqah. And then we'll plan to restart the Seerah halaqah. Either we restart it in September, or I come with something a little bit different. We'll see, depending on what the popular vote or the popular opinion is regarding that. And I'm happy to do either or, inshallah ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ performed his only Hajj. It's called the farewell Hajj, but it was the only one that he did. And he did this ﷺ in the 10th year of Hijrah, and it was literally 3 months before he passed away. And we have an abundance of stories from his Hajj alayhi salatu wasalam, because of the number of people that attended it. 100,000 people were with him alayhi salatu wasalam during this Hajj, which is a phenomenal number, because you're talking about the seventh century, and at the time the number of people on the planet were only a number of millions. Today it's a number of billions, so we're literally 1,000 times more. There's 1,000 times more people today than there was at that time, and then 100,000 people as a ratio of the number of human beings on the planet was pretty high. It was a very high number. So the Prophet ﷺ was able to assemble this number with him during Hajj, even though for the majority of his story, the majority of his life, or the majority of his prophecy, he was working with 3,000, maybe went up to 4,000. That was the highest numbers that he was able to actually believed in him. And then it all kind of changed in the last two and a half years of his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. He performed this Hajj. It was bittersweet for him, alayhi salatu wasalam. A part of him knew that this was the end of his life. Part of him knew that this was the end of his prophecy and of his message. And he had not performed Hajj in many, many years. He had not been in Mecca for a long time. He came for Fatih Mecca, but that was very short, and it was just for a number of days, and then he left, alayhi salatu wasalam. So this Hajj to him, alayhi salatu wasalam, was a homecoming Hajj, and he was able to go and experience the beauty of these rituals and teach us the manasik, meaning, and this is what he said all throughout his Hajj, خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ, take from me your rituals, meaning manasik means the way to perform these rituals. Are you guys ready? Yeah. So what they're going to go through, inshallah, today, for a little bit of time, they're going to go through, inshallah, their story of Umrah and how in the manasik that they experienced and how they found their experience in Umrah, inshallah. From different timings, you'll find different timings for all of them, and there'll be some Q&A, especially for the younger people, if they want to kind of know about this experience, and I'll be chiming in, inshallah, as well, and there'll be a kahoot at the end as well. So I hope, inshallah, you enjoy the little bit of change of pace. Jazakumullah khair. I'll give it to you, inshallah. Yeah, this actually works really well. So.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Hope everybody is doing amazing today, inshallah. So we have a little presentation, inshallah, on our Umrah trip. There's 3 different parties who went, so we're all going to be giving our collaborative experience, inshallah. And I'll let Abdullah, my name is Ali Hamu, and this is Abdullah, and I'll let him go over the 3 parties and what we'll be sharing, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So there's a bunch of people. We had 3 different experiences for Umrah. Brother Ali went with Brother Hisham here and Brother Aboud. They all went together as friends with a few other people. And then me and my sister Shiham and sister Maryam, we both went with our respective families. So we're going to give the two perspectives that we had with our experiences.
Inshallah. So the way it's going to work, we're going to go over our presentation. We have some pictures. We're going to go over the stages of Umrah and each of our different experiences. And then afterwards, there's going to be a little bit of a Q&A where you can submit anonymous as well as just raise your hand. And then we're going to have a Kahoot at the end. It's kind of like a trivia where if you've been paying attention, you'll be able to win some prizes, inshallah. So we'll start by Hisham going over the Mecca, inshallah, starting with Mecca.
All right. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Hisham, and me and a few other friends, we went on a Umrah trip on Christmas break. And it was really fun, and I do encourage everyone, if you can, to go and do a Umrah sometime, inshallah, in the winter. Don't go in the summer. So moving on, our first stop was Mecca, and here's a picture of us second day on after we prayed Fajr. Yeah, we all look like eggheads. But anyways, so that's where we went. Mecca is a really nice place, subhanAllah. Once you enter, you do feel the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's just this really spiritual feeling that you get, and words can't really describe it. And it's just a general feeling that I wish everyone can experience one time in their life.
So the first thing you see when you enter Mecca is the clock tower. It's very beautiful. It's very big, subhanAllah.
This is the tallest hotel, by the way, and it's the fourth largest building. Moving on, so Mecca is the city itself in general, and then within that there's the boundaries of the Haram, which is within it is the Kaaba, which we'll go into details after. And then after this, Sister Maryam, inshallah, will go into the details of Umrah and how does Tawaf and Ihram starts.
So, assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm just going to discuss like the technicalities of the Kaaba. So once you enter into the masjid and you kind of go through, you'll see the Kaaba. It's actually recommended to make dua for pretty much anything once you see the Kaaba or you lay eyes on the Kaaba. So the Kaaba is a cube, obviously made up of four corners: the black stone, the Yemeni corner, the Iraqi corner, the Syrian corner. And then these are some like other like features of the Kaaba. So there's the Hatim, which is that like semi-circular sort of part. And you're supposed to sort of like do your tawaf like around that part, not actually go inside. And if you actually do end up going inside, then your tawaf for that, your turn for that is invalid. But it is recommended to pray like 2 sunnah prayers there. And then there is the multazam, and that's like the area between the black stone and the door of the Kaaba, and it's typically where like dua is also accepted as well. So it's like recommended to actually like put your chest, hands, and face against it, make any sort of dua you want. The kiswa is that black covering that like completely like covers the Kaaba, and it's typically changed after like every like 9th of Dhul Hijjah or the day of Arafah. So if you're doing Hajj, you'll actually be able to see them changing it, which is pretty cool. And lastly, there is Maqam Ibrahim, which is translates to the station of Ibrahim. And it's just sort of like this place where Ibrahim alayhi salam, when he was building the Kaaba, he stood upon. And it shows like, I believe it actually shows his like footprints as well. So it's a pretty cool part of it as well.
Just to add on, so Assalamu alaikum, my name is Abdurrahman. So when we went with like a group of like 7 or 8 guys, alhamdulillah, so it was a big group. And so when we were doing tawaf, we kind of split up, we kind of just got lost. It wasn't the plan, but it happened. So me and Hamza, one of the brothers that came with us, when we split up, we actually got a chance to touch the area between the black stone and the wall. And that was one of like the craziest moments, just because it's hectic, everyone is pushing and everyone's trying to get in to touch it. Alhamdulillah, me and Hamza were able to actually place our hands on there. We weren't able to place our chest because it was impossible to do so, but we were able to touch it. We may have lost our slippers on the way and lost a group, but I think it was worth it. That was after.
Also, the first time you see the Kaaba, because myself and I think like majority of the other guys who went in our group, it was our first time going to Umrah or even being in Mecca. Like the first time you see the Kaaba, it's surreal. Like you're at a loss for words, subhanallah. But one thing Shaykh Anan did tell us before we left is the first time you see the Kaaba, the dua you make is mustajab, so it's accepted. So like a little life hack you can do is when you see the Kaaba for the first time, you say, "Oh Allah, accept all the rest of my du'ats going forward in my life." So that's a little point I like to add.
I did want to mention, as a woman, it's much harder to touch the Kaaba or the black stone. I wouldn't recommend going unless you have like your dad or your brothers with you, or even if you ask the guards to help you. So from personal experience, don't go by yourself. Definitely go with a mahram or ask the guards for help.
So now I'll be going through like the steps of Umrah. So there's entering Ihram, Tawaf, performing Sa'i, and then exiting the Ihram. Okay, so the first step is entering the Ihram. So Ihram should be completed at the Miqat. And the Miqat is sort of like these like points sort of surrounding Mecca where once you pass it, that's the point where you're into Ihram. So the first step is performing ghusl and then putting on your Ihram clothes, which Abdurrahman will demonstrate or some. The ihram clothes are just basically like two towels that you wear around your waist and you wear on top, and this is what everyone sort of wears, or like the men at least wear, when they're doing the Umrah.
They're both identical pieces.
Yeah, so both pieces are the same length. He's gonna put it on, and then I'll describe what he's doing basically. So a good way to start off, you open your legs wide because you're gonna need to be comfortable while walking or fast walking when you go to Sa'i. And when you do that, you take one piece, you put it in, and then you put the other one over. And then you can bring a fanny pack with you and then start folding, or you can just start folding right away. Just make sure you're covering your belly button across the entire time. Some people don't buy it like this. They buy it with like an elastic inside to help prevent the towel from not falling down. And then for the piece on top, you take that, and then you put it behind your back. You make one side longer than the other. You put the shorter side in first, and then you put the longer one on top of it over your shoulder. Just like that.
Also, one thing to note is that you're not allowed to wear anything while in the state of Ihram except for the Ihram towels.
Yep.
So just the Ihram towels, nothing else.
And then when you're doing the first 3 rounds of tawaf, you expose your right shoulder. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ used to do that because it was a sign of showing strength. But you only do that for the first 3 rounds, or you can do it all the way. But the most important thing is that when you pray, you have to cover both shoulders. You can't pray with one shoulder out.
Okay, Jazakallah khair guys for the demonstration. Jazakallah khair guys for the demonstration. For women, obviously we don't have to wear the ihram. We just wear what we normally wear. Just obviously make sure you're dressing modestly. You're wearing the hijab and either an abaya or khimar. But yeah, next step after putting on your ihram clothes. So once you reach the miqat, you have to make intention. So you just make intention within your heart that, Ya Allah, I'm coming to from Umrah. And you would also pray two nafil salah. So once you enter into ihram, you recite the talbiyah. Now, does anyone know what the talbiyah is? The chant that you're supposed to recite? Yes.
لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد ولك النعم لا شريك والنعمة لا شريك لك لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, takbir.
Allah.
MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. So yeah, you recite exactly that as you travel towards Mecca until you see the Kaaba. So once you enter into the state of Ihram, you cannot cut your nails, remove your hair. You can't like kill or hunt any creatures. This includes like insects. So if you see an insect like you're actually like an ant or whatever, like you can't kill it, which is really hard, but just try your best. And then applying perfume, you're also not supposed to do that as well.
So just one thing to add, that the rule is you're not allowed to like intentionally cut your nails, cut your hair or nails. So if you like accidentally break one of your nails or like you scratch your head and one of your hairs fall out, it doesn't break your ihram.
And just about tawaf, I was asked to talk about this. Kind of embarrassing, but yes, you might lose your wudu when you make tawaf. I lost it, and I lost the group as well. But when you lose your wudu, that's completely fine. All you have to do is there's a lot of wudu stations across the haram, and so you can just leave, make wudu, and you come back and you continue tawaf. Now, what's nice is you don't have to start over. So if you lose your wudu on maybe your 6th tawaf, you don't have to start over from the beginning. You come back and you continue from the sixth one. So you do one more and you're done all 7. And then after you're done tawaf, you would go over to you go over to Safa and you have to do your sa'i. I know.
Okay.
Sorry, and then we'll talk about tawaf, then sa'i.
So, like I mentioned before, like miqat is the sort of the points, where like once you cross it, you start making the intention, to enter the state of ihram, and you enter the state of ihram. So like these are the points of miqat. And then tawaf. So obviously, when you start seeing the Kaaba, like I said before, you make dua. Or you can use that life hack that Ali mentioned. So you make your way towards the Ma'taf, which is like the sort of the place surrounding the Kaaba, and you look for the black stone, the black stone corner, which is the place where you're supposed to start. And actually in the Ma'taf, you'll see like green lights, and just to make it easier for you to like see. And this is where you're supposed to start. So once you start, you raise your right hand towards the black stone and you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and you can start your like circulations. And you make 7 counterclockwise circulations around the Kaaba. So each time you like pass the black or you reach the black stone, you raise your right hand and you say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. And yeah, you do that 7 times. Once you complete that, you're gonna pray 2 rakas behind Maqam Ibrahim. So you just have to kind of like find that. I know it's like really crowded, but like just try your best, find that, and then pray 2 rakas behind Maqam Ibrahim and drink Zamzam water. And then you make your way towards Safa to begin sa'i.
I just have a quick question. So there's Zamzam stations obviously across the haram, the entire haram, but there's a specific dua that you say when drinking Zamzam. Does anyone know the dua? Go ahead. Yes. Allahumma inni as'aluka ilman nafi'a wa rizqan tayyiba wa amalan mutaqabbala. That's the dua you make when you drink Zamzam water. Moving on to Safa and Marwa, which is called Sa'i. Aboud is going to take over and explain that.
Okay, so then after you're done your 7 tawafs, you would head over to Mount Safa. Mount Safa and Marwa, they're so if you look up on Google, it says mountains or hills. In reality, they're just like kind of little like incline a little bit, so it's not even like a hill. You can see it, but it's not that high. It's not noticeable. So then there's a lot of signs posted as well. It says Safa this way, Marwa that way. So you'd head over to Safa, and once you get to Safa, you would go up the little hill. You look at the Kaaba and put your right hand up and say Bismillah Allahu Akbar 3 times, and then you can make a dua. And then after you do that, you would start going to Marwa. Head over to Marwa. The distance between Safa and Marwa is about 400 to 450 meters. So once you do that 7 times in total, it will be about 3.6 kilometers in total. You will start off at Safa and then you would head over to Marwa. On the way to Safa and on the way to Marwa as well, there's areas that are indicated by a green light. If you go next slide. So as you can see here, there's areas that are indicated by green lights. Those are areas where the men have to hurdle or jog a little bit, so like kind of speed walk or a little bit of a jog in between that area. And so that is heading over to Safa and then heading over to Marwa as well. You would have to jog for a little short distance, and I'll hand over to Hisham and he'll explain the significance behind Safa and Marwa and why we do sa'i.
Before Hisham begins, I'd just like to add, it's a lot of people think that tawaf is a tiring part of Umrah, but this is actually, at least in my experience, the more tiring part, because you don't have shoes and you're walking on the hard road or like the hard tile. You're like running, jogging back and forth, and also it's the most time-consuming part of Umrah as well.
I will also add that women don't have to run, so it's not as tiring for us.
Even though it does sound tiring, time will pass by and you won't actually feel it, because as you're doing tawaf and as you're doing sa'i, you're doing adhkar and you're doing dua along the way. So it's all a'mal mustahabba that we're doing, and you won't get bored as you're doing it. So to talk about the significance of sa'i, Hajar alayha salam, she was the one who was the wife of Ibrahim alayhi salam. She was the one who was running between Safa and Marwa. And the reason for that, who knows the reason for that? It's from Sheikh Anhan Seerah. Yeah, go ahead. Yes, she was looking for water, and when the water started coming out, she was like, "Zummi, zummi." That's what it's called, Zamzam. And yes, on the green light, that's where men fast walk, because that's where Sayyidatuna Hajar alayhi salam would fast walk. As well, there's also a dua that we say as we're doing this. Who knows the dua? Yes. رب اغفر وارحم واعف وتكرم وتجاوز عما تعلم إنك تعلم ما لا نعلم إنك أنت الله الأعز الأكرم.
All right, and then after you're done your 7 sa'i's between Safa and Marwa, it is the last stage of Umrah, and that is the easiest step, which is exiting the state of Ihram. To do so, you would just have, so for the men, you would have to trim your hair or shave your hair, and then for the ladies, you'd have to cut off like about 1 inch of your hair. Now, this part was the part where I was most debating before, because I like my hair and I had a big afro before, and before we went, Sheikh Hanan had said you can just trim your hair, and so I'm like, okay, maybe I'll just trim it, but then I don't get the full edge and not the full experience of Umrah. And also what kind of encouraged me was, as you can see, all the shabab with us, pretty much all of us, we did shave our head, and so it wasn't by myself, and so that kind of encouraged it. But what's really nice about it is once you're done and you cut off your hair, you're kind of like a new person. It feels like it's refreshing. It's a new start. Like all your dunub are, inshallah, Allah accepts from you, and all your sins are erased. And so when you shave your head, it's kind of like a new start and a new life. And so that was very fun, and it was a good experience. And honestly, I didn't mind my bald look for a while.
I'll just add on to that, because everyone has their own different experience when they're going bald. So once you sit on that chair and you see everyone just going in for like 2 seconds, and Pakistani guy just comes in and he just whips it out, and then when you sit in there, it's just a complete different experience, because some people take their hair personal and then they start crying when they lose it and stuff. But when you remind yourself that it's for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you actually find it beautiful, and you just keep saying, oh, this is for the sake of Allah, for the sake of Allah. And you actually do feel that you just completed a full-on Umrah once you completely shave your head. Because I tried both. I tried shaving it completely and trimming one time. Shaving it completely felt much better, felt much more satisfying. Even though it doesn't look the best, it still felt good, subhanAllah. And just to go back to the ihram point at the beginning. So we went through Qatar, and that's where we put on our ihram. We changed before we left. But you don't actually make the niyyah until you cross the miqat by the plane. Some people change on the plane, but it's too tiring to do that.
And then once you enter the miqat and you're in the ihram, that's when you can't spray cologne, you can't cut your nails or anything. After you cut your hair, you're done, you're out of the state of ihram. You're more than free to cut your nails. You can go and take a shower, take off the clothes, put on new clothes, spray on deodorant, spray on cologne, whatever you want after that. Here's a picture of us in the elevator. I think this was when it all sunk in, because we didn't really see our faces before. But then we go to the hotel and you go up the elevator and we're all looking bald and just like making fun of each other. It was fun. And then if you go next slide, actually, I was asked to include this. I recorded my hair getting cut off. It was a 7-minute video. That's how long it took to get my hair shaved off. But it'll make a quick time lapse of just no mercy, just straight going down with the razor, just cut your hair off, and that's it. I did get cut maybe once or twice, but...
One thing I'd like to add is that you learn to love things for the sake of Allah. So, for example, Aboud's hair right now, mashallah, looks really nice, right? So, from a materialistic perspective, it does look nice. But if you look at a bald head from a different perspective, from a perspective of loving something for the sake of Allah, you'll actually find more beauty in that bald head after you've just completed Umrah than the whatever's in style or and whatnot.
Yeah, that's right. Like even with all my hairstyles right now, I would still go back. If I go to Umrah, I'll definitely shave my head again, just because like that. It's not even the hairstyle, but the meaning and why you even shave your head in the first place. That is beautiful and why it's meaningful. Also, this is just pictures from. So this is from after Umrah. So after Umrah, you're like, so the Kaaba is there, and it's just like a masjid, so Masjid al-Haram, and you can go in and pray. And so this is a picture of after Fajr. As you can see, it's just crowded. This picture here is on the roof. So alhamdulillah, we prayed all 5 prayers with the Shaykh, with the Jama'ah. And so this was Fajr prayer. We put it on the roof. It was a beautiful experience because you wake up and it's December when we went. And so it was nice. It wasn't humid. It was cool. It was a breeze. You'd wake up with our bald heads. You can feel the air and everything. And so we prayed on the roof. I think that one we prayed That was Fajr, and then after that, sorry, say that again. Yeah, and that picture was the last. That picture was like, okay, that picture was because we separated from the group and we couldn't find each other, and so they had to wait for me and Hamza, and then they found Hamza and they couldn't find me, and I couldn't find them, and so we ended up having to waiting, and so then we found each other. So it was kind of like a yeah, we found each other selfie. Here we go. Before we went bald.
So just one thing to add. From these pictures, it looks like very crowded, and it is very crowded, but these pictures don't do it justice. When you're doing Umrah, there's like 30 people just standing right around you, like shoulder to shoulder, so close, you have no space. So it's really important to stay with like a group so that you don't get lost or like in the group of people.
And also, once you go to Umrah, you'll notice that the Malaysian people are very strong, especially the ladies, because they interlock their hands and they just walk as a force, and it's like an army, and no matter what you do, you can't get past them, and they don't care, they won't stop for anyone, they'll just keep moving their tawaf, and if you're in their way, they will literally shove you out the way like a bulldozer, and then you learn that, you need to be with a group and interlock hands and walk together.
Allah, mashallah, tabarakallah. It's amazing seeing all the different types of people from around the world, and it's amazing. Yeah. So we're gonna move on, inshallah, to Medina. So technically during Umrah you don't have to go to Medina, but like basically everybody does. You see the Masjid al-Nabawi and everything, so we will hand that off to Hisham, inshallah, and he'll start describing Medina.
Yeah, so I asked Sheikh Adnan about this, and he told me a fun fact. So the sunnah was to go to Medina first, and then you go to Mecca, and then you go back to Medina again. But we did just went to Mecca right away, and then after that we went to Medina. Medina is a really beautiful place. I found it more peaceful than Mecca for some reason. It wasn't as chaotic, it wasn't as loud. It was really nice and quiet. So obviously we went to Masjid al-Nabawi. Yep, and those are some pictures we took. So from the outside, it's also really nice. It's really spacious. There's a lot of stores, a lot of plaza stuff that you can enjoy before going to prayer and after going to prayer. The masjid from the inside itself is also really cool. It has a lot of historic and religious designs. You can also find names of the Sahaba written in circles, which is also really nice. Also, a fun fact about the tiles of the Haram in Mecca. They're white and they're under the sun all the time, but subhanAllah, when you walk on them, they're ice cold and you don't feel the heat on the floor. And then this is the masjid from the inside, as I said before. There's obviously Zamzam stations all across as well. And you guys may find it weird that there's shoe racks inside, but that's fine because you're not going to walk all the way to the gate to get your shoes. So they just keep shoe racks at each pole to keep it easier for people to find their shoes.
I think we lost like, what, 2-3 pairs of shoes on this trip?
I lost my slippers too, but it's fine. And also, there's also areas in the masjid where the umbrellas go down and you can pray and it feels like you're praying outside, which is also really nice. And then we'll talk about Rawda for a bit. So Rawda is the place between the house of the Prophet and Aisha, the house of the Prophet ﷺ and Aisha radiallahu anha, and between his mimbar. It's a small space, so there's a process of going into there. You obviously have to book it before, and alhamdulillah, we got the chance to pray Fajr inside the Rawda, which was really nice. And those are some pictures we took inside of there. So the picture on the top left is where the mu'adhin goes up and makes the adhan. And then those are some pictures Ali took with the guards because they're trying to kick us out, but they decided to take a picture with them. And then down there is a picture of the grave of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and next to him is Umar and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhum.
The thing that I love about the Rawda is like any place that you step or you pray could have been where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stepped or prayed, or any of the Sahaba of his time. SubhanAllah. So it's just crazy to think like it's the most holy. It's a piece of paradise. It's called. So it's the most holy place on earth.
I did want to mention one thing about the Rawda. The women's side is a bit smaller than the men's, and we don't get the same view of the Prophet ﷺ's grave. We kind of see the back side of it. So that's something to keep in mind so you're not confused when you go.
Okay, I'll go on next. So next to the Masjid al-Nabawi, there's Maqbarat al-Baqi', the Baqi' cemetery. And this is one of the first and oldest Islamic cemeteries. And anyone who dies in Medina is entitled to be here. And the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said a hadith about Maqbarat al-Baqi'. He will do shafa'ah for 70,000 people Yawm al-Qiyamah of the people who were buried there. And those are the people who are going to be resurrected right after the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, Abu Bakr and Umar.
Just before we move on from Medina, I want to say a couple of things. So first thing, actually, our trip had a lot of plot twists to it. And so we had checked into a hotel. We go into our hotel room. It was right like outside the masjid. It's actually right in the masjid as well. So like you walk out and you just walk right inside the masjid. It was really close, but on our floor, we had the head of the army from the Indonesian side. So like the Indonesian head of the army was on our floor, and he had the whole side, and there was like security guards and like the military there. So it's kind of crazy every day or every time I walk up from a hotel room, there's like two guards, the big guys holding like AK-47s and just like staring at me like I'm just trying to go to pray or something. But they thought like, that it was fun. It was a good experience. They were nice guys afterwards, talked to them here and there. They were nice, but it was a good experience. It was a good story to tell. And also the reason I think me personally and a lot of the guys with us, we liked Medina more a little bit, or we felt more connected, is because it's less hectic. So when you're doing Umrah, you're in your haram clothes and, there's like millions, like 100,000 people there. Everyone's pushing, everyone wants to get close as possible to the Kaaba. Whereas when you go to Medina, it's beautiful open land and, there's a lot of space, alhamdulillah. And so you can walk around freely, do your own thing, and no one's pushing, no one's shoving you from the back. And also it's very meaningful that the Prophet's grave is right there. So like you're praying, and literally like to your left is when you're praying, the left hand side of you is the Prophet's grave. And so it's kind of more meaning. It's really meaningful. Like I'm praying right beside the Prophet's grave.
So I do recommend spending as much time in Masjid al-Nabawi as you can while you're in Medina, but I also would say visiting all the sites that are connected to the Prophet ﷺ's life. When we visited those sites, I could hear Sheikh Hanan's Seerah like lectures like in my head while we were visiting and hearing all the stories. So yes, so next slide. So Masjid Quba is the first masjid that was built. The Prophet ﷺ used to visit every single Saturday that he was able to. And whoever visits this masjid with wudu and prays there, they get the reward of an umrah. So after having come from Mecca and completing an actual umrah, you could get reward of the same by praying here with wudu. There's also the Quba front, which is 3 kilometers of streets with shops and food for spending time with your family and friends. I think that was my favorite part of Medina outside of Masjid Nabawi. We had a family friends that lived there, so they showed us around and we ate and drank. And then there's Masjid Qiblatain, which is where the Prophet ﷺ received the revelation of the changing of the Qibla from Al-Aqsa to Mecca.
And just when you go into the masjid, subhanAllah, you do see that from the structure itself inside that the Qibla was changed. It's almost similar, like where the Qibla is right now, they had the same design but in the back. So you can see that there was a change in the Qibla.
And then there's Mount Uhud, which is where the Battle of Uhud took place. So you're able to climb the Archer's Mount. But right now, Mount Uhud itself is closed, so you can't climb that. And there's also Masjid Uhud, and in front of that is the graveyard of the martyrs of that battle.
Yeah, who remembers the story of Ghazwat Uhud from Sheikh Hanan's Seerah and what specifically happened there? No, okay, what happened? Who? Okay, what I was gonna say is, so what happened is the archers that were on the mountain, they didn't listen to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, right? And because of that, they lost the battle. And that's the mountain where Khalid bin Walid came from the back and what's it called? He did the attack.
One thing that like Shyam said, it's as you're going through all of these places in Mecca and Medina, it's like mashallah, Sheikh Hanan's Seerah is just playing through our heads, and we're watching some of his videos on Facebook and like, oh, we're going here. So just a fun fact to add.
So as I mentioned, there is the graveyard of the Shahideen of that battle. One of the notable ones was Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, and there was also not Mu'adh, Mus'ab ibn Umair. So we took a moment to make dua for the Shahideen when we went there.
The picture on the left is actually the grave of
We also went to the Salman al-Farisi farm, which is where the Prophet ﷺ planted 300 date palms himself to free Salman al-Farisi from slavery. There's also more trees there now than there used to be. And if you look here, you see these little divots. So they have a really big water tank, which just kind of waters the trees. So you don't have to go and water each single one. It kind of waters itself, which is really cool.
The sukkari dates from this specific farm are so good. Like, we left some of our clothes just so we could fit some back in our suitcase to bring it back. So.
And we also went to the Ghars well, which is one of the preferred wells of the Prophet ﷺ. He asked that when he died that the water from this well be used to wash his body. He also used to make wudu from this well, and he used to drink from this well because it was really fresh water. So now I'm going to pass it on to Ali to give you a little bit of a blooper reel.
Okay, so a fun fact, while you're in Mecca and Jabal Uhud, there's always stray cats like everywhere. And we collected some 0.5s of their faces. But a popular destination for a lot of tourists after Umrah is to go to Jeddah, and that's what we did. Just our group. So there's a couple pictures. This is us at the Red Sea. It's me and Zaid there. And it was really, you go in the water and we saw a bunch of corals. It's really nice, subhanAllah. And then we went to the desert and we went on these ATVs. Really, really fun. And then we had, sorry? What part of Umrah was that? This is the tent we had. That's actually a real photo. It's not edited. Me and Aboud, we were just standing. And then we were just waiting for like half an hour for the lightning to strike. And then as soon as it did, we took a picture.
Yeah, so once we were in Jeddah, we had the tents, we were in the ATVs and everything, and then we were eating, and then the electricity went out, and it was just pitch black in the desert late at night. So it was kind of cold, and it was dark. And then you would just see lightning come up, and it'll light up the whole sky, subhanAllah, and then it'll go away, and then like 2 minutes later, it will come back again. And so I remember all of us standing there, literally like this. We had our phones out with the camera on at the sky like this, just waiting for it to just lightning again so we can catch it on our phones. And so alhamdulillah, we got some pictures of it. And the food, so what we had over here, I don't think they added a picture, but we had a sheep. I think it was like a 24 kg sheep, and we had on a spit roast on the fire for like 4 or 5 hours, just turning until baking while we went on the ATVs and all that. And then alhamdulillah, mashallah, there's like 10 big guys here, so we all finished it, and like all was left was bones. But it was a good experience. It was different because over here you eat and you go like, you just buy your poutine or whatever, but like experiencing proper Arab food was alhamdulillah experience by itself.
One thing though, Jeddah is fun. There's a lot of tourist attractions, but we just came back from Medina. And like while you're in Jeddah, you're having fun, but you just keep thinking about Medina. Personally, for me, Medina was the best part. Like it's so serene and calm. It's just like it doesn't really compare. Although it's really fun in Jeddah and all that, just Medina just has different vibes.
And honestly, like I agree with Ali there. Like we did a lot of stuff. we did a lot of stuff, and we went through different cities and all that. And Amma Hassan right there, he
Shout
was
out to Amma Hassan, mashallah. He really made our trip happen.
If it wasn't for him, none of us, we there's no story to tell. It would have been just, actually, I don't know if I actually would have went without Amma Hassan, because I would have forgot what to say and all that. So Amma Hassan was like our tour guide, so jazakallah khair for all that. We had to give him a special thank you. And yeah, with that, if you have any questions, comments, feel free to ask.
You also can submit questions through there if you guys are interested.
And if you want to do it anonymously, you can scan the QR code and submit questions. Actually, yeah, trick question. Who knows where Amma Hassan is standing?
I heard it. I heard it. Somebody said it. Yes.
There we go.
Mashallah.
Bingo, yes.
It's like a 2.5 hour climb.
Okay, so you're asking about after you do your tawaf. And so after you do your tawaf, you have to pray 2 rak'at behind Maqam Ibrahim. So if you actually go back the picture from the beginning, can we go back so I can just explain real quick? All the way back. Okay, I'll explain. So Maqam Ibrahim isn't, I'll read for the picture, makes it easier. But Maqam Ibrahim is kind of further away from the Kaaba itself. So everyone making tawaf is kind of like close to the Kaaba. And the further away, the more condensed, or the less condensed it gets and the less people there are. And so once you get to like Maqam Ibrahim, you don't have to pray exactly at Maqam Ibrahim. You can pray from Maqam Ibrahim and anywhere behind it. So there's a lot of empty space behind Maqam Ibrahim. And so you can just make sure that, make sure you're standing in front of you is Maqam Ibrahim and then the Kaaba is in front of it. And so, there we go. Here's a picture. One more. No, other way. Holy. Okay. But yeah, so
There's actually borderlines and dedicated space that they put over there, and then you'll be able to tell that you'll see people there praying 2 rak'ahs after they're done, and they have like fencing around it and all that, so it's not just chaos all over the place.
I guess you're not getting the picture, but yeah, it's just behind Maqam Ibrahim. There's a lot of empty space. So you can pray anywhere behind there.
Any more questions?
Oh wait, picture's back. Okay, so there's a Kaaba, and almost everyone makes tawaf like closer to the Kaaba as possible. So they all would be like here, and then you have Maqam Ibrahim is right here, and so you have like the whole haram pretty much behind it, like all this area here. It's all empty, so you can pick a spot and just pray. Just make sure it's behind Maqam Ibrahim. Thank you.
Just one more thing. Even if the main floor is busy, now they made like 2 floors on top of that as well. One of them is actually for handicapped people. If they're on a wheelchair or something, they have a separate floor for them. And there's people who actually push them around if they don't have a family member to push them around. So it's not only this floor, there's multiple floors that you can do tawaf at.
Yep. Questions, comments, concerns? No? Okay. So if we have no further questions, Sheikh Hanan will take over for around 20 minutes, and then the last 10 minutes, inshallah, we'll have a Kahoot. Inshallah. Okay. So we hope everybody enjoyed that. Maybe just a little incentive for you guys to bug your parents to take you to Umrah, not Disneyland. But inshallah, jazakumullah khair.
Jazakumullah khair. Allah takum al-afiyah. MashaAllah. So that's just a little bit of a, especially for the younger brothers and sisters, a little bit of a taste of what you would get. I lived in Saudi for around 10 years, and I lived in Medina for around 6, and in Mecca for the remainder, around 3.5, something to that degree. And for sure, the best memories of probably my entire life is there. I would never left. I always look back and wonder why my parents decided to leave. I loved it. I loved everything about it. And definitely, if you have not performed Umrah before, or you have not done it in a long time, then it's for sure something that if you do, you'll definitely enjoy it. It'll be very meaningful to you. Make sure before you go, whether you're going for Umrah or Hajj, that you get some coaching. You spend some time with someone, let them explain to you what the monastic are about, which is why we did this, kind of get a sense of kind of what to expect and what places to kind of go and visit, and the significance of certain spots and the significance of certain acts of worship, because it's very meaningful, and it's a new beginning for many people who have not done it before. So in the maybe next 25 or 20 minutes, I'll go over a little bit of the farewell Hajj of the Prophet ﷺ, and then there's a Kahoot at the end, so you guys can kind of participate in that as well. Yeah, keep on going. So, where did we stop? Is this working? Perfect. All right. Very good. So, the Prophet ﷺ, and I talked about this last week, I think. The Prophet ﷺ, we have a lot of narrations of how his Hajj actually occurred, because a lot of people watched it. And one of the favorite that I have is an Amr ibn Shu'ayb an Abihi an Jaddihi an Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. So Amr ibn Shu'aib, his father is Shu'aib ibn Muhammad, and his grandfather is Muhammad ibn Abdullah, and his great-grandfather is Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. So Abdullah ibn Amr al-As is one of the known Sahabis, obviously. So we have narrations from this, where Amr ibn Shu'aib is narrating from his great-grandfather. And he tells us that his father, Shu'aib ibn Muhammad, went with his grandfather, which is Abdullah ibn Amr al-As, and they performed Hajj. And he tells us what Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As did. And Abdullah would go do things, and he would tell him, هَكَذَا صَنَعَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ. This is what the Prophet ﷺ would do. So they went and they performed tawaf. And as they, of course, you start from al-Hajj al-Aswad, and then you start performing your tawaf. When he was right behind it, قَالَ أَلَا تَتَعَوَّذْ مِنَ النَّارِ. You should ask Allah, you seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from النار. And so he said, إني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يفعل ذلك. I heard the Prophet ﷺ do it at this point. قال ثم طاف فلما وصل إلى الملتزم وقف. The multazam, as Brother Aboud kind of explained, is the small area between Al-Hajar al-Aswad and the door of the Kaaba. It's not that wide, it's pretty... and Abdullah ibn Amr al-As came to it, and he stood there. وَدَعَى وَقَالَ هَكَذَا صَنَعَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. He would do all these things, and he would tell his grandchild, this is what I saw the Prophet ﷺ do within his Hajj. And during the Hajj, the Prophet ﷺ would, it was a very sentimental one for him in many ways. All the stories that you read, you find, you see the Prophet ﷺ, especially if you read all of these narrations, you find him ﷺ in a state of profound reflection. You find him ﷺ very touched by everything happening around him. And I think the reason for that is not just the fact that he was back home again, and this time things were different. This time he would come back and the number of Muslims was much higher and people were following and learning. It was also, he knew in his heart that this was the last time. He was never going to do this again. I mean, he was never going to stand in these masha'ir. He was not going to perform these manasik. This is not something he's going to be able to do again. And I think for that reason, to him, this was a very profound, it was a very deep moment. There were very deep moments for him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And he stood fil multazam, and this is what Umar ibn Khattab tells us, that he stood he went to the multazam alayhi salatu wasalam during Hajj, and he stood there. يقول فوقف النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وقد ألصق خده وصدره ويديه على الملتزم. He went alayhi salatu and put his hands up, and he put his face, his right cheek, and his chest. قال وقف يدعو ويبكي. He stood there and he just was making dua and he was crying. And Umar ibn Khattab يقول فرأيته فرق له قلبي. I saw him and he just felt sad. رضي الله عنه. فعمر ibn Khattab, he began to sob. So the Prophet ﷺ saw him. قال نعم يا عمر ها هنا تسكب العبرات. Yes, Ya Umar, this is the time for your eyes. This is the time for you to sob. This is the right moment for you to cry, Ya Umar. This is the right moment to do it. During his Hajj ﷺ, the verse in Surah Al-Ma'idah was revealed to him, was given to him. The verse اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Today is the day that I have completed for you your religion or your belief, and I have fulfilled upon you my bounty. I have accepted for you Islam as the faith to continue with until the end of time. And when this happened, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu began to cry. Then Umar ibn Khattab saw him, قال ما يبكيك? Why are you sad? This is a time for celebration. This is a time for us to be happy. The deen is finally complete. The bounty is finally fulfilled. Why are you crying? فقال أبو بكر ما بعد الكمال إلا النقصان. هذا نعي رسول الله عليه الصلاة والسلام. Nothing. At any time when something is complete, all that comes after completion is the graph goes down. Whenever the graph hits the peak, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go but downwards from there. So this is the obituary of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. Umar al-Khattab was asked later by Ahl al-Kitab. They told him, if we had this verse in our book, we would have made that day Eid. اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. If we had a verse like that in our own book, we made it Eid. فقال عمر ألا إنها عيد. It is Eid. وإني أعلم متى نزلت وأين نزلت. I know exactly when it was revealed and where it was revealed. It was revealed upon the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام يوم عرفة على جبل النور في حجته عليه الصلاة والسلام. It was during his Hajj. He was standing on Arafah. That's when this was revealed to him عليه الصلاة والسلام. So it is an Eid. It is an Eid for us. The Arafah and Nahr are the days of our Eid. He would say alayhi salatu wasalam after that, إنما أنا بشر يوشك أن يأتيني داعي ربي فأجيب. I am just a human being, and the messenger of my Lord is soon on his way to call for me, and I will respond, I will come. And he would say these things alayhi salatu wasalam, and some people would understand what he meant, and some people wouldn't fully understand what he meant, but he was referring to the fact that his life was going to end quite soon. As he's going through his manasik alayhi salatu wasalam, the stories are many. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'll share with you a couple of them. Alayhi salatu wasalam is on his jamal, and he was going for the jamarat, where Usama bin Zayd was behind him, and Bilal ibn Rabah was pulling the camel, and they both had towels on their heads because it was so hot as they were going to perform their jamrah. So they could see the Prophet ﷺ being taken in that direction by Usama and Bilal, and on his way back, they weren't with him. Al-Fadl ibn Abbas was with him, meaning his cousin was behind him. He would go with some people, come back with other people, teaching people how to perform these manasik. And tomorrow, inshallah, I will go through the manasik of Hajj. Like I'll do a full review of Hajj. Today we did a review of Umrah. Tomorrow I'll do a full review of Hajj, and I'll point out as I go through the review of Hajj, maybe some of the stories of the Prophet ﷺ's Hajj as well, as additional information, inshallah, for you to enjoy. And on his way back, with the Fadl ibn Abbas sitting behind him, people would come and ask him all the time, alayhi salatu wasalam. And a young lady came and started to ask him a question, alayhi salatu wasalam. So she's asking him, and he's listening to the question, and he's answering. And the lady, she's standing there, she's a young lady asking a question, and Al-Fadl is sitting behind him, and he's staring right at her as the Prophet ﷺ is hearing the question. So as the Prophet ﷺ is hearing the question, he puts his hand behind like this, and he turns Al-Fadl ibn Abbas's head to the right. And then he looks at Al-Fadl and he smiles. فقال العباس his father قال يا رسول الله ما حملك على فعل ذلك مع ابن عمك. Why did you do this to your cousin? فقال شابة وشاب لم آمن عليهما الشيطان. As a young man and young woman, you have to be always cautious of the shaitan when something like this is like that. And alayhi salatu wasalam, the epitome of adab. He didn't turn to Fadl and slap him or tell him, he just took his head and moved it a little bit and then smiled at him, alayhi salatu wasalam. And Fadl got the message, and he did the ghadd al-basar, and he allowed the lady to ask her question without being stared at. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Probably the most important part of learning his Hajj, alayhi salatu wasalam, is learning the farewell sermon. Okay, let's go and see if we can. So when you go to the Jabal al-Nur on the mount of, the Jabal al-Rahmah, the mount of compassion or mercy within Arafah, and it's definitely something to do. I don't think you guys went to that. Did you guys go again? So if you go to Mecca and you perform Umrah, if you do Hajj, make sure you go to the manasik. Make sure you go to Arafah, Muzdalifah, and Mina and see these areas. They're important. Like because it's empty during that time. Outside of Hajj, there's no one there. I've played soccer in Mina more than I played anywhere else in the world. So you can go. It's empty. So you go and you can learn. You can see these areas and get a sense of the beauty of what this place is. So the Prophet ﷺ stood here, and he gave a khutbah. The khutbah is called the farewell sermon, and I've narrated this many times, in different settings. And he gave this sermon like at least 6 other times within the same Hajj. I mean, he gave it on the day of Arafah, and he gave it on the day of Nahar, which is the day of Eid, and then he gave it throughout the 3 days of Tashriq that came afterwards. And every time there was a group of people, he would repeat certain parts of this sermon. He didn't always repeat the full thing, but he would repeat a couple of paragraphs of the sermon. Because he's talking to 100,000 people, there's no microphone. You can only imagine that so many people were able to hear certain aspects of it. So every time he found a group, he would give a khutbah and he would repeat certain paragraphs of this sermon. And that's why this sermon is narrated to us from all these different sources. Like, there's a lot of people who kind of pointed out in different wordings and different recollections of what he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, but the ideas are pretty much the same. So what I always do within Seerah is I go through his sermon, alayhi salatu wasalam, because I think it's important for you to know it. And this is something I did during universities. I patched the sermon all together and authenticated all of the paragraphs, meaning I went back and figured out exactly in which books of hadith they existed, who narrated them, and what level of authenticity, and I authenticated all of it, meaning the whole thing is authentic. Like the whole sermon, all 9 paragraphs are authentic. None of them lack authenticity going back to the Prophet ﷺ. I put them together and I published it, and it was I still have it written in my handwriting. I hold on to that piece of paper. It's a little bit of a it's sentimental. But generally speaking, There are 9, actually there's 9, I don't know why I put 8. There are 9 paragraphs of it. I think the last one I didn't consider. There are 9 paragraphs of the Prophet ﷺ's sermon. So I'm going to go through these paragraphs with you. And I want you to imagine, this whole khutbah, by the way, would take no more than 7 minutes. If I were to recite the whole thing, if I can speak quickly, if I do it quickly, I can do it like 3 minutes. But if you do it slowly, it takes around 7 minutes. It's not a long sermon. It's not like a Jumu'ah khutbah where it goes forever. No, 7 minutes. However, he was talking to 100,000 people. So you had 2 people on horseback. 2 people on horseback who would gallop into the crowds and then repeat everything he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, then go a little bit farther and repeat it again, and because sometimes there will be a question at the end of it and they had to answer, and then they would come back. And he would wait, alayhi salatu wasalam, until that happened. An interesting point here that is not, I always thought that was kind of, I got stumped by this point. The 2 people on horseback, one of them, once he died, alayhi salatu wasalam, performed riddah. One of the people on horseback, once the Prophet ﷺ passed away, left Islam. One of these people, one of the 2 people on the horseback that would go in and convey the message, once he died, ﷺ, left Islam. And just made me always think that sometimes just conveying something doesn't necessarily mean you're fully committed to it. Sometimes you could be upfront and you can be, it doesn't mean that you're safe. Doesn't mean that you are, no, it doesn't mean anything. It just means that you were granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the opportunity to be in a really good place. Either you take that opportunity and you hold on to it, or you don't. And this is just a story that I always thought was kind of scary. Even though this person had the honor of conveying this message to 100,000 people, he still ended up losing it after the Prophet ﷺ passed away. And I always thought that was something worthy of contemplation. He's standing on Jabal al-Rahma alayhi salatu wasalam. He's looking at 100,000 people in front of him. It's a sight that I don't think he hoped for, he worked towards. I'm not sure he fully, even him, I'm not sure he could fully imagine it, alayhi salatu, until he actually saw it. And then he was given this opportunity to address all 100,000 people in a moment of true humility and gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So all the narrations put together, they start by saying, قَالَ فَحَمِدَ اللَّهَ وَأَثْنَى عَلَيْهِ. He started by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and magnifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is what he always did, alayhi salatu wasalam. And we don't take that for granted and we don't just jump from it. He would spend time doing that, alayhi salatu wasalam. Alhamdulillahi nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastahdihi wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa Allah wahdahu la sharika lah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. And he would go into this long continuation of praise, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, of Allah before he began speaking. And that piece was meaningful to him, alayhi salatu wasalam, was meaningful to the people who were listening to him. It wasn't a lullaby for people to go to sleep during Jumu'ah. It actually had significance. So you start, and within the time that we have, at least I'll just share the first paragraph, and I'll give you guys the kahoot. Because the first paragraph is mutawatir. I mean, the first paragraph has full authenticity. It's narrated by so many Sahaba and so many people after them that it has the highest level of authenticity. It's not dhanni, it's yaqini. It's full certainty in these words. I mean, he 100% said this. Everything else we have high probability. Whenever you talk about authenticity of hadith, meaning it's a high probability of 75, 85% that he said it, alayhi salatu wasalam, in the way that he did. The Quran obviously is 100%. This piece of his khutbah, the first piece, 100%, he said it, alayhi salatu wasalam. We have overwhelming evidence that he said it that day. So he stood, alayhi salatu wasalam. He did this day of Arafah, he did this day of Nahr. And he started his khutbah by saying, do you know what day it is today? أَتَدْرُونَ أَيَّ يَوْمٍ هَذَا? And then people would say, if someone would speak up and say, Arafah or Nahr, or Adha, and he would repeat the question, do you know what day it is today? And this is the geniusness of his oration, alayhi salatu wasalam, his ability as a public speaker. Because everyone's talking, and then he asks the question, what day is it? And they say it's this. And he says again, what day is it today? So what day is it today? 3 times, so they all quiet down. They're like, he's going to change the name of the day. So they give an answer, and he says, Yawmun Haram, this is a sacred day. This is a holy day. And then he asks again, do you know what month it is today? So they answer, and he asks again, do you know what month it is today? Asks the third time, do you know what month it is today? And they say, it's Dhul Hijjah. And they said, we were scared maybe he was going to change the name of the month. قَالَ شَهْرٌ حَرَامٌ, it's a sacred month. And they ask, do you know what land this is? Do you know what land this is? 3 times he asked the question, and they're all like, it's Mecca. فقال بلد حرام. This is a sacred land. A sacred land. And then he said, أيها الناس ألا إن دماءكم وأموالكم عليكم حرام. In one narration that we have, he said it 3 times. Indeed, the sanctity of your lives and the sanctity of your wealth amongst you. عليكم حرام, meaning is sacred. عليكم حرام is amongst you holy and sacred. كحرمة يومكم هذا في شهركم هذا في بلدكم هذا إلى يوم تلقون ربكم. Is sacred amongst you. The sanctity of your lives and your wealth amongst you is as sacred as the sanctity of this holy day in this holy month on this holy land until you meet your Lord. The sanctity of the lives and the wealth of your Muslim brothers and sisters is as sacred as this holy day within this holy month on this holy land. You see all the holiness, all this sanctity just being piled up on top of each other? It's a sacred day, it's a sacred month, it's a sacred land. It's coming from the mouth of the sacred himself, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, in his only Hajj. Imagine all this sanctity, all of this holiness is just overwhelming. The sanctity of the human life and human wealth is better. Meaning your rights, for me not to harm you physically, for me not to transgress against your wealth, is more sacred than that. You understand what he's saying? You see all this sanctity? That's what he's telling them. You see all this holiness? See the holy day and the holy night, the month and the holy land, and all of this is going on amongst each other. Your rights amongst each other is more sacred. Taking care of one another, making sure you don't harm someone, making sure that the life and the wealth of the person beside you is safe is more sacred and more holy than that. And then he would go on, alayhi salatu wasalam, we wouldn't stop there. ألا لا يجني جان على ولده ولا مولود على والده. Not even a father or a parent should transgress against their child, nor their child against their parents. So it's not just it's not just between people in general. No, even within families, even parents should not transgress against their children, nor children against their parents. كل المسلم على المسلم حرام دمه وماله وعرضه. Everything about the Muslim towards his Muslim brothers and sisters is sacred. Their lives, their wealth, and their integrity. ولا يحل مال امرئ مسلم إلا عن طيب نفسه. It's not acceptable for you to take the wealth of another Muslim except if they're giving it to you with an open heart, meaning they want to give it to you. And then he would say, ألا هل بلغت? Have I conveyed the message? And then they would gallop into the crowds, repeating these words, asking, did he convey the message? And they would all say, Allahumma na'am. Allahumma na'am. And then the whole crowd, Allahumma na'am. Yes, we heard. And he would say, Allahumma fashhad. Oh Allah, be my witness. Oh Allah, be my witness. I told them that the sanctity of their lives and their wealth is more important than anything else. It's more important than Arafah and Dhul Hijjah and Mecca. All that holiness is not equal to the holiness of what they owe each other. The sanctity of your life and wealth to me here is more sacred than Arafah in Dhul Hijjah on Arafah with the Prophet ﷺ in his last Hajj. And this is what, out of all the moments of his life ﷺ, this is the one I hope to go back and witness. However, the sanctity of your life is more important. It's heavier. It's heavier in the scales. And that's why he said, Allah al-Balagh, did I convey the message? So then when you start killing each other and ripping each other off and mistreating each other, you can't come back and say, well, he didn't tell us. Because alayhi salatu is worried. Yawm al-Qiyamah, someone's going to come and Allah's going to tell him, did you not explain to them? No, I did. I explained to them. I explained it all to them, but they didn't. I told them that all of the sanctity of everything they can imagine is not equal to the sanctity and the holiness of the rights they have upon each other, their lives and their wealth. So make sure, even if others don't follow this properly, that you as a Muslim do. Okay, I'm going to grant you the ability to do the Kahoot for the last 6-7 minutes. We will continue. So the plan is tomorrow. I go through Manasik al-Hajj. If you're interested, once I'm done, it doesn't take a full hour to go through all the Manasik. I'll explain them, and then I'll go through the rest of the khutbah of the Prophet ﷺ if you're interested in hearing it, and then I'll explain to you, inshallah, the plan for the night of Arafah, which is Tuesday. So Allah